This is the Freedom Otter Show. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Broadcasting from the Ottoman Empire with 50,000 gigawatts of power, this is the Freedom Otter Show.
Sup? Yo. It is Monday, beginning of the work week. It had to happen, unfortunately. Sucks. I am Freedom Otter. I am your favorite water sausage. Thank you for tuning into the show. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel, whether it's here on Rumble, our home platform, or on YouTube, or if you're watching on X, make sure you give us a follow. Check out the show notes on either YouTube or Rumble. We got our Discord there, our two-way community. You can join that. Also, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think about the show. Good, bad, whatever. And also, make sure you check out our merch store. Go on over there to ottomanempire.creator-spring.com. You can pick yourself up a t-shirt, coffee mug, water bottle. We got all kinds of cool stuff over there. Head on over there, take a look, see what you like, and whatever you buy basically goes back into the show directly. Helps with more content, more hardware, building up the studio, all that good stuff. So head on over there, ottomanempire.creator-spring.com, and see what you like. They're great for gifts, birthdays, holidays, you name it, it's all good. So what's going on? What a day, what a day, what a day, right? It's Shark. Shark is in the chat. Hey, Shark. What's going on, my guy? Thanks for joining us on the show tonight. I know I think I kind of twisted your arm a little bit to come into the show, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay, because I think you're going to have a great time. I think you're going to love it. And thanks for giving me a shot. I really do appreciate it. And hey, if you're on Rumble, thank you again for being a part of this show. And like I said when we started, check out the show notes down below. You can join the Discord and be a part of the 2A community. So, well then, how was your weekend? Mine was pretty well. We actually the missus and I, we actually had to go out and we had to get a new car because the lease on the old car was done. So we went out and we ended up spending a little bit more than we wanted, but it's okay. It's okay. It's not an electric vehicle. So they're not going to be shutting that down anytime soon. But anyway, yeah, that was basically my weekend. How was your weekend? Let me know in the chat, or head on over to X and you can let me know there as well. In the meantime, though, why don't we go ahead? Why don't we get started on our first story for the night? Coming out of here in the Empire State, The New York Safe Act Chronicles, Part 5. Meet Ryan, another victim speaking out. So this, I guess, from Bearing Arms is like an ongoing series. I did not know this. Excuse me. But needless to say, I'm going to go find parts 1 through 4, and I'm going to read up on it. But I thought this was quite good simply because with the Glock bill proposed back on Thursday, was it Thursday or Wednesday? I think it was Wednesday. But we had Vasterbone on the show on Friday. He talked about it. You can go check that out on rumble.com as well as YouTube on our YouTube channel, Freedom Otter. So make sure you check that out if you need to get up to speed. In the meantime, just shy of 2 years ago, I started this series and we're on the 5th numbered installment and have had 2 other side quests. I have intended on wrapping up the 5th part of this series by discussing how unconstitutional the mental health hygiene law is in the Empire State, but I got a message connecting me with Ryan Wells, which prompted me to take a different direction this time around. Wells, like Sandy and Isaac from the previous articles, is another victim of the SAFE Act, and his story is worth sharing. Ryan Wells grew up in New York State. He said that he had a good upbringing, nothing abnormal in the home, and from the gist of my conversations with him, it sounds like his home life was pretty good. Regardless of Wells's upbringing, he became an addict. Addiction is one of the worst things that favors no socioeconomic status, race, creed, or lifestyle. Are there elements they may affect one's predisposition to becoming an addict? Sure, but Wells did not use any excuses in talking candidly with me. Wells said he lived for 27 years in Orange County, New York. I guess it was more of finding and hanging out with the wrong people in high school, Wells said, of his descent into addiction. I started doing pills, and as I finished high school, that slowly transformed into doing heroin. Crime merely goes hand in hand with hard drug use, and in Wells's case, that was no different. You know, I got into a little bit of trouble here and there, nothing crazy, just getting caught stealing stuff and everything. Sometimes wow, I can't talk. Wells was living with these addiction problems. He said, I had tendencies as some people put it, of hurting myself, he continued. I went to the hospital for help because that's where people go for help. I drove myself to the hospital, walked in the front door and said, I need help. Little did Wells know those lucid portions of his journey would actually come back to haunt him. Eventually, Wells found himself in jail, not prison. Wells was quick to correct me when I used the word prison. What happened? He ended up in jail for driving under the influence, an infraction that he said could not lead to a sentence longer than a year for that offense. I asked Wells about his time in jail and if there was any support to help him or drug programs. And here's where we're going to get into it. I know exactly what's probably going to happen here. No, he says, it wasn't supportive. It was a little terrible old school jail up in the mountains in New York, and they were not supporting you with any of that. I went to many rehab facilities before going to jail, and, I did learn and know the methods of how to deal with being sober. I mean, when you're an addict and you're in and out of living the life, most addicts go into rehab many, many times before they straighten stuff out. And they do teach you everything you need to know in rehab. It's just applying it. I decided to apply it. Ryan Wells on sobering up in jail. Wells was happy and proud to tell me that he's been sober for the last 6 years. I said to him that his story is the story that we all want to hear about, the one about perseverance and beating addiction. About a year and a half ago, Wells said that he moved to South Carolina. He said that basically his whole family moved there over the last 20 years, and he was the last man standing. Good for you. Good for you. Get out of New York State. Get out if you can. It was when he was in South Carolina that he learned that those years ago, when he asked for help, would come back and punish him. Wells said he went to purchase a firearm. He said the NICS check came back rejecting him immediately. He was flagged for something. Statistically, 90% of NICS denials are false or wrong, but unfortunately, that was not the case for Wells. He was put into the system. After jumping through several hoops, Wells found out that those times he voluntarily sought mental health help in New York ended up getting him entered into the NICS database as a disqualified individual. The New York Safe Act's mental health hygiene law struck again, and the medical provider entered him into the system without him knowing it. I wanted to summarize things with Wells while we were chatting to make sure I got all the details down. So John goes on to say to him, So you identified a problem and you didn't want to do harm to yourself or others, and you went and sought help, which is what we're told to do. And then New York turned around and said, because you did the right thing, right? We'll say the right thing, which is get help when you feel that you need help. You are tending to your mental health. They turn around and they put you in a database as a disqualified person on a federal level for a voluntary stay or a voluntary amount of help, which meets none of the statutory elements on the federal or even the state level, correct? Yeah, Wells simply replied. So I kind of saw that coming. Kind of saw that one coming right there. This New York State, I mean, even for the entire country in general, when it comes to the mental health system in this country, pro-gun people have been screaming about this for years. Years. And still, neither side, Republican or Democrat, has done anything about it. Anything. What does that tell you? What is it? I mean, where is this bullshit coming from? I'm kind of breaking my own rule of swearing on my show because I'll just have a long conversation about that some other time, but still, I can't help it. This is total bull. You go and ask for help, and then you get penalized for asking for help. It's bad enough that guys, every guy listening to this show right now, listening to this stream right now, knows exactly what I mean when it comes to asking for help or even showing any kind of vulnerability. We all know it. We won't say it out loud, but yet we all acknowledge it. We know it. We know exactly. We're all thinking the exact same thing. It's just as bad as what Wells has been going through with New York State. Seriously. It's beyond reprehensible. But then again, this is New York State. They lead in dumb fuckery. That's their claim to fame. Not that they're the Empire State. They have the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, New York City, Broadway shows, anything like that. It's dumb fuckery. It's that simple. New York State makes anyone who gets help for basic medical conditions as a criminal. Yeah, it looks like it. Seriously, this is just going to turn people off. Nobody's going to want to go and get the help they want, especially if they're going to lose a constitutional right. They may not need the gun then because, yeah, they're sick. They don't need the gun right then, but they sure might need it later. Maybe after they've gotten themselves sober or straightened out. That right there is a big problem. There's a big push right now in the 2A community about getting nonviolent felons their constitutional rights back. So Rahimi, which was heard in the Fifth Circuit and is now awaiting certiorari from the Supreme Court, or did he get certiorari? I'm not sure. But that case right there would most likely define what a dangerous person is that fits the U.S. code for being disqualified from being able to purchase a firearm. I think once they nail that down and they define what exactly that means in the court, some more guidance, I think it'll be a little bit easier to help get many of these felons who have served their time, they were nonviolent, get their rights back and basically go from there. Now, violent felons, yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms that we would have to work out. Do they not get their 2A rights back after they've served their time? Is there a grace period? What do we do? What are some of your thoughts, chat? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in chat or leave a comment on the video, on the stream down below. We can bring this up in another show if we want. But let's get back to it. Right now, Wells is in the process of trying to get through appealing this decision. Everything goes to and through New York State, not the FBI or the federal system. Like many, Wells is finding the process to be tedious, and at the time of our conversation, he was still working on his application to send in. The chilling effects of Wells' story echoes in remembrance of talking to many others who found themselves similarly situated. I would have never have went and got the help if I knew I would be losing rights because of it. He expanded when I asked him what advice he gives someone potentially in need. Quote, I always was a huge advocate of people. After recovering, getting the help they need and doing what they need to do and seeking whatever help they need. I would always say support the homies getting sober. Getting sober has a lot to do with mental health. There's no doubt about that. But if you live in New York, I don't even have an answer unless you maybe have someone some provider that you really, really trust. But I wouldn't trust anybody. Now they only, from my understanding, do this in New York. And I think that's something similar in California, but I can't speak on that. But anywhere else in any other state, to my understanding, I would say to seek the help that you need because they won't strip your rights from you. But even still, it makes me hesitant. Say I had something else happen in my life that I felt I needed to seek help for. It has left a permanent mark on me of, well, this is going to happen again for some reason. It makes me not trust any healthcare providers, and that's not right. So, yeah, I don't even know what I would tell anybody. Honestly, I've no clue. I'd seek help, but maybe not through a professional, at which it doesn't help. And there you go. New York State, basically. California, most likely as well. They're their own worst enemy. Seriously, they are. They are their own worst enemy because they've just been ran into the ground by the left. The left has basically just ran these states into the ground. I've lived in New York State pretty much all my life. I don't know why I've come back so many times. I don't know. Well, I do know. It's my family. My family's still here. Well, they were still here. The only family left in New York State is my sister. And we don't get along that much. So I don't think it would be too hard for me to want to say, let's go. And I've had this conversation on X too. The wife is not ready to go because her mom and dad still live here in New York. So they're getting close to retirement. At least her mom is. Her dad is already retired. So I have to wait and see what happens here. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit better picture by the end of summer. Who knows? California Open Carry. Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it. Let's get you back up here. For now, at least, nonviolent felons have 2A rights in the Ninth Circuit, U.S. v. Duarte. Well, that's good to know. That's something good to know. Leave the People's Republic of the State of New York. Yeah, for sure. That's what I advise anyone out there to do. If you are stuck in New York, get out. My personal opinion is disconnect all the bridges to the island and let nature take its course. Let's see. Shark says, I've talked to you about this. Compromise, brother. Hope you choose South Carolina. That's where I will be. Okay. Well, if I get to South Carolina, if that's where we end up, I will definitely look you up. But for sure, if you're in New York, if you're in California, if you have the means, get out. I mean, it's not bad now in the rural areas, the less urban areas. It's not as bad in regards to the crime. I mean, but the cost of living, obviously, sky high. If you can get out, get out. Why? I mean, I'm just ready. Yeah. But anyway, let's keep on going. Even though Wells' story is not over and he's still battling to get his rights back, he has an uplifting message. He said that no matter what, keep trying and working towards getting your rights back if you're in the same situation. He's confident that if you keep at it, eventually you will get your rights back. Unfortunately, the story for Ryan Wells is one that should be celebrated, and yet we're left sitting here perhaps feeling sad for him or maybe angry. Perhaps you don't know how to feel. He did do some bad things and went to jail, but this is the guy that they talk about, the one that got help, got sober, and turned his life around. The question presented is, should seeking voluntary mental health help lead to prohibition of firearm ownership? Other things we need to consider include asking if the type of person that is saying they need help and wants to get better, are they the kind of person that's likely to be a problem? We learned in a past piece in this series that only 3% of the people with mental health issues are predisposed to the type of violence all of these probative laws are claiming they'll stop. So what's the deal? The New York State SAFE Act and accompanying mental health hygiene laws wreak havoc on the lives of those they affect. These types of laws have created a serious chilling effect when it comes to those who may want to seek help, and the law will leave people unknowingly disqualified without warning. I'll certainly be staying in touch with Ryan as he continues his journey to get repatriated with his rights. If you're interested in catching my full conversation with Wells, you can do so here, and that's over at bearingarms.com. You can check it out. And then, of course, the first 4 parts of the series. So, unintended consequences, go figure. New York is very good with that, aren't they? It's just, I honestly think they're looking for ways to just blow things up down in Albany. Literally 10 minutes away. I can smell Kathy Hochul. I'm sick of that one. She's just, yeah. She's a number, all right. All right. Let's not get too fixated on Kathy Hochul. We all know Horseface there doesn't really deserve our time. Study claims Americans uncomfortable living near AR-15 owners. Oh, this is going to be interesting, I bet. Good friend Tom Knighton here over at bearingarms.com broke this one out. Let me get a drink of water. Let's dive in and let's see what Tom has to say. Do you know what kind of guns your neighbors have? Do you care? No and no. Why is it any of my business? Kathy Horseface is a great governor. Come on. No, she's not. No, she's not. If she wasn't governor, she'd probably be running up at the Whitney up in Saratoga. Give me a break. If you're a lot like a lot of gun owners, not really, except in regards to possibly getting to shoot it at the range someday, that would be nice. Go with your neighbor to the range. Most folks don't know and generally don't care all that much, not unless someone gives them a reason to care. How you store it might be of interest to them, but that only matters if you know you have guns. Yet a recent study claims that not only do they care about how you store them, but they also don't want to live near you if you have an AR-15. So you're saying if I want my neighbors to leave me alone, if I'm in a neighborhood that I don't want my neighbors to bug me in, all I got to do is just let it slip that I may have an AR-15? Okay, maybe there's an upside here. A recent study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences reveals that across all political and social groups in the United States, there's a strong preference against living near AR-15 rifle owners and neighbors who store guns outside of locked safes. This surprising consensus suggests that when it comes to immediate living environments, Americans' views on gun control may be less divided than the polarized nation debate suggests. To scientifically investigate this, the researchers conducted 2 experiments using a Qualtronics survey involving a diverse national sample of 2,135 adult U.S. residents. The sampling strategy was purposefully designed to ensure a broad range of demographic, political, socioeconomic, and geographic representation. Approximately 35% of the participants indicated they owned guns. It should be noted that this is lower than the percentage of homes known to have a gun, which the Hill reported to be at least 42% in 2023. In other words, the researchers underrepresented gun owners as a percentage of society. Of course, this are we surprised? Whenever we see a new New York Times Siena research poll, we know that thing leans so far left. Leans farther than the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Getting back to it here. And since we also know that a lot of gun owners refuse to answer surveys honestly about whether or not they have firearms, the actual numbers are likely to be significantly higher than that, which means this sample of the United States isn't reflective of the United States in the least. Then we have the experiments themselves. I don't know about you. Do you remember when they wanted doctors to put on the forms, do you have any firearms in the home? You remember that when you were going to your doctor's office and you had to fill out the patient information form? Some doctors would have that information on there. My thinking is a lot of people either said no or left it blank. Seriously, whenever I saw that, I would just lie and say, no, I don't. It's none of their goddamn business. Why are they asking in the first place? I don't care if you say it can affect my health. I don't give a damn. It's none of your goddamn business. So I'm going to tell you, no. Shark goes on. Let's see. What does Shark say here? Come on up. Who cares what kind of guns my neighbors own? Do I care? What? How many cars my neighbors have? Nope. None of my concern. Exactly. Exactly. Why is it anybody's business? Honestly. But getting back to the experiments themselves. In the first experiment, the researchers employed a method known as conjoint analysis, which is widely used in social sciences to measure preferences. They presented participants with profiles of hypothetical neighbors who varied along several attributes, including whether the neighbor owned a gun and, if so, what type. Specifically, the gun ownership attribute had 3 levels: no gun ownership, owning a pistol, and owning an AR-15, a semi-automatic rifle that is often highlighted in debates over gun control due to its use in many high-profile mass shootings. More pistols are used more in shootings. Okay, maybe they're making the distinction of mass shootings, but yet nobody can define really what a mass shooting is. We're still dicking around with that question. It's like, what is a woman? We're still all over that crap. I mean, come on. How do you define it? You got one group that says it's 3 or more people that have been injured or killed, and you got another that says it's 4. You got another that says it's 2. It's all over the place. So I right here, I think it's already doomed. Participants were asked to choose between pairs of these hypothetical neighbors, with each pair presented in a table format. Each neighbor profile was also defined by other characteristics that could influence perceptions of gun owners, such as gender, race, ethnicity, political affiliation, religious beliefs, family status, and socioeconomic status. The design aimed to mimic the complexity of real-world decisions where multiple factors are considered simultaneously. Aside from gender and ethnicity, okay? How are they going to? How is somebody? I mean, I don't even know what religion my neighbors are. I don't know what their political affiliation is. I don't talk to them about politics. So they're throwing out all these hypotheticals. I don't, and socioeconomic status. I mean, I don't see how this could be real world enough. The result was people prefer to live by either non-gun owners or handgun owners rather than AR-15 owners. However, this is about preference, and there doesn't appear to have been an option regarding not caring one way or the other. In other words, they offered a case where people had to select a preference that wasn't necessarily indicative of their overall beliefs. And that is supposed to show that we all really are, that we don't like AR-15, despite it being the most popular firearm model in the nation. I mean, come on. We knew it was the most popular. There's a reason why people like it. 43% of of the nation is gun owners. Is that it? Something like that. However, the deck is stacked. Many non-gun owners, if absolutely forced to choose, will probably say they'd rather not live next to someone with a firearm that has been demonized by the media relentlessly for decades, but in their day-to-day lives, they don't actually care all that much. And it gets better. As Billy Mays says, but wait, there's more. The second experiment focused on another crucial aspect of gun ownership, storage practices. This experiment utilized a picture-based factorial visionette approach, where participants were shown a scenario involving a neighbor's gun storage method. The visionette described a social gathering at a neighbor's house during which a gun was spotted in an opened drawer. The storage condition of the gun, either secure, locked, or unloaded, with variations of a gun safe or a chamber lock, or insecure, unlocked and loaded, was randomly assigned to each visionette. I mean, first, why is someone leaving the drawer with their gun open where their guests can see it plain as day? Literally, no one does that. And if I came across someone who did, I'd probably be less than thrilled with having them for a neighbor. It's not indicative of my views on guns either. It's indicative of my views that my neighbor is an idiot. I'd rather not have an idiot next door who not just leaves a gun unsecured, but all but tempts people to steal it by leaving it in an open drawer. Somehow, I don't think these researchers accounted for that. I don't think so either, Tom. I really don't. Number one, I don't think you'd be leaving it like, you're not leaving it on the coffee table, right? You're not leaving it in an open drawer on the end table, right? I mean, come on. Seriously? So the only other option is what, your neighbor or your guest was going through your bedroom? Is that it? I mean, this is basics 101. I don't get where they're going with this stuff. I mean, seriously. Further, I'm curious about what else they check for. After all, while they celebrate the strong findings, all of these findings equally strong for neighbors who play loud music. What about smokers? What about people with hobbies that use loud machines or practices like woodworking or metalworking? Of course, they check for none of that, and that's important. They force people to make a choice and then present that choice as if it's something that people feel vehemently about, all without any evidence proving they do, especially in comparison to other things people might have opinions about. Once again, we see how pretty much any research involving guns is absolute garbage. And they wonder why that pro-gun politicians, which we should still keep an eye on, by the way, no politician is above reproach, okay? None of them. But we should be keeping an eye on those suckers. But still, this is why many in the gun community don't want any kind of research done by the CDC, because the CDC can be skewed and tainted. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. How are you going to get a non-biased survey? Seriously. You got to jump through a lot of hoops. A lot. There is so much bias out there nowadays. I know you probably heard about it ad nauseum online. Just look at the court case in New York with Trump. Just look at it. We all know what's going on. I don't have to say any more than that. How hard is it to get a non-biased thing going? Pretty hard, I think. At least nowadays. All right, let's take a quick break. Hey, head on over to ottomanempire.creator-spring.com. That's my merch store. Please check it out. You can get yourself a nice t-shirt. You can get yourself a hoodie, sweatshirt. I got shorts over there as well. Coffee cups, mugs, all kinds of good stuff. Go check it out. ottomanempire.creator-spring.com. We got Sausage on there. He's a cute little otter. He's our mascot for our gaming channel, Ottoman Empire Gaming. Ottoman Gaming Empire, I should say. Go ahead, check it out at ottomanempire.creator-spring.com. And all the proceeds from the sales at that store will go towards not only this show, but the gaming channel for subscriptions, for better content, for hardware, to improve the studio, build up the studio, build a nice big. I would like to get this as big as NRA TV used to be. Remember when the NRA actually did stuff and they had the NRA TV streaming station? Cam Edwards was on there. Dana Loesch was on there. Remember that? That's what I want to build. I want to build something like that again, but not have Wayne LaPierre come in and F it all up. And you can help by basically heading on over, OttomanEmpire.creator-spring.com. You can also become a subscriber of the channel. Yeah, you can subscribe to the channel, $5 a month. You can do that. If you think I'm doing a good job, if you like the content I'm putting out, I would invite you to become a subscriber and help me. It's a voluntary thing. I got to earn it. I got to earn that $5. And I'm perfectly willing to earn that $5. All right. This one's good. I read this and I was like, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Where's this coming from? Columnist claims psych tests for legal gun buyers could stop felons from getting guns. Kind of ties in to Mr. Wells with the SAFE Act. He was a nonviolent felon. Oh, no, he wasn't even really a felon. Seriously. All right, let's get into this. In his 1964 book, The Conduct of Inquiry Methodology for Behavioral Science, philosopher Abraham Kaplan laid out what he called the law of the instrument. Give a small boy a hammer, and he will find that everything he encounters needs pounding. Columnist Jason W. Parks' hammer of choice is the Sheehan homicidality tracker scale, and for the second time in less than 2 months, he's using it to pound on legal gun owners. In a new column for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, Parks points to the shooting of 8 police officers in Charlotte, North Carolina, by a convicted felon who illegally possessed a gun to argue that every lawful gun buyer should be forced to take the 16-question test before they can take possession of their firearm. In the Charlotte shooting, the suspect had a homicidal hatred of the police, making him mentally unbalanced. He also illegally possessed an AR-15 rifle, which means he was an armed felon. And although the police had him cornered, the suspect was a fugitive from justice and had evaded the police previously. So we know there is a problem, but can we put the genie back in the bottle? After all, we cannot force a mentally ill person to take medication and do therapy. We cannot trust a gun-toting felon to follow the law, and we cannot expect law enforcement to be everywhere all the time. This is where the Sheehan homicidality tracker scale can help. It's a 16-question test that detects homicidal tendencies in the test taker. Properly administered at a gun dealership, the SHTS would 1. Fail the homicidal mentally ill, 2. Prevent them from being armed, and 3. Serve as a proxy for law enforcement. Park never does get around to explaining how this would have prevented the shooting in Charlotte. Maybe because he can't offer a plausible theory. It's the test that Park is really focused on, not the particulars of how an armed felon, violent felon, with a lengthy criminal history, illegally got a hold of a gun. Back in March, Park suggested that the test would be a mandatory step when buying a gun. In that instance, using a federal judge's decision dismissing charges against an illegal alien who possessed a firearm as the nail for his hammer. So my only question is, how are we going to get the guys on the black market selling some of these guns to administer that test? I know, right? Right? In the U.S., since the late 18th century, there has been a long-standing prohibition on guns for the mentally ill and felons to separate those deemed a danger to themselves or others from guns. The system in place uses Form 4473, which asks about mental health history and felony convictions. Then a background check is run on the 3 databases comprising the NICS system. But Form 4473 is not a proper psychological assessment, and the NICS is missing 25% of all felony convictions. A mental health sociopathy test and criminal tendency Sheehan homicidality tracker scale, together with a good option, both tests would take no more than 15 minutes total for an ATF agent to administer and grade on site to determine whether the applicant can buy a gun. Okay, hold up right there, Methuselah. Now you're talking about having an ATF agent at every FFL? What the fuck, bud? You're trying to put the gun industry out of business, right? That's what you really want to do, right? It's not about keeping mentally ill people away from guns. It's about shutting down. It's about disarming us. That's basically what you're saying here, okay? And or is your next thing going to be, well, the FFL guy can do it? Number one, I would call into question if the FFL guy is properly trained to be able to do something like that. Or are you suggesting adding more regulations on top of all this? The gun industry is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world. That's here in the U.S. Look at all the gun laws. Look at all the gun laws on the books right now here in the U.S. It's easier to drive than it is to get a gun. It's nuts. As I wrote at the time, Park's bad idea is fatally flawed from a practical perspective, as well as being utterly repugnant to our individual liberties. All right, Tom, pick that bone, baby. In Park's mind, every gun shop in the country has a friendly, or maybe not so friendly, ATF agent standing at the counter ready to administer these tests to every prospective customer. The biggest lie in the universe is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. You can write that down. It's the truth. According to the agency, there were about 5,100 employees in 2022, and not all of them are field agents. The ATF also reported that there were 136,563 FFLs in the United States that year, which means that in order to put Park's big idea into place, the ATF would have to increase its staff by more than 26 times its current levels. No. Full stop. No. Period. End of sentence. That's going to be a non-starter on Capitol Hill. Oh, you think? For all but the most boisterous of gun grabbers. Don't forget the commie mommies. They were here in Albany last week or so. They're still trying to restock all the boxed wine. The latest budget deal slashed ATF's budget by 7%, so I don't see lawmakers approving a bill that would make the ATF the single largest federal law enforcement agency by far, dwarfing the 10,000 or so DEA agents or the 35,000 FBI employees. The U.S. government's too damn fat. Put it on Jenny Craig. Justice Park never did explain how this test could stop people from illegally getting guns. His recent column fails to address his glaring flaw in his big idea, though he does pay lip service to addressing the Second Amendment argument. Some would say that this test infringes upon our rights, but there's a long-standing prohibition keeping the mentally ill and felons away from guns. 18th century peace officers were authorized to lock up the lunatics who were dangerous. If one is not homicidal, the test will protect one's Second Amendment rights. If you didn't do anything wrong, then you don't have anything to worry about. Isn't that what they usually say too? They say that as well, right? I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, that's the sum of his argument. If you're expecting something more substantive, I share your disappointment. Yeah, for me to be disappointed would be an upgrade. I don't know if Parks is aware of this, but civil authorities still possess the authority to involuntarily commit someone who poses a danger to themselves or others. It's just that it takes more than a effing. Wow, Tom, tell us how you really feel. 16-question test to make that determination. And if someone is adjudicated as a mental defective, they're prohibited from ever legally purchasing or possessing a firearm in the future, which in itself is a constitutionally dubious statute. In fact, Park also never tells us what he thinks should happen if a gun buyer fails the test because they demonstrate homicidal thoughts or beliefs. If that's enough to deprive them of their Second Amendment rights, is it enough to lock them up because they're dangerous? Should they be put on a list for government monitoring? Should they be prohibited from possessing other deadly weapons like knives, baseball bats, or billy clubs? Or should the friendly ATF agent parked at the gun counter just tell the buyer no and let them walk out the door? Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. Park needs to put down his homicide test hammer and come up with a new tool if he wants to be taken seriously. We're simply not going to have an army of 100,000 or more ATF agents sitting at the counter of every gun shop administering and grading psych tests to determine if a buyer is homicidal. Heck, the creator of the test does not authorize anyone to provide training to others on the test who is not a licensed psychiatrist or clinical psychologist, so an MD or a PhD, and who has not been specifically trained and authorized to provide this training to others by Professor Ivan Sasha Sheehan, which would seem to preclude its widespread use by law enforcement agents or its use to determine whether someone should be able to exercise their fundamental civil rights. You know, gun grabbies and commie mommies, I gotta hand it to them. They got a lot of ideas. They're not good ideas, but they got a lot of ideas. But yeah, there's, I mean, you can tell right here. This is the same thing as taking a handful of spaghetti and throwing it at the wall to see if it sticks. See if anything sticks. They don't think critically about these things before they open their mouths. They don't have answers for questions like these. Not to mention the fact the test, you got to be a licensed psychiatrist. So now we've got ATF field agents, 100,000 ATF field agents who are also psychologists. Wow. That's yeah. That's way to go there, Parks. Way to go. That works splendidly, I think. No, not really. No. But what do you think? Tell me down in the comments, in the show notes. Well, the comments. Why do I keep confusing show notes and comments? You know what it is? It's because I just don't have enough caffeine in me, I think. I'm going to have to start having caffeine when I do this. But still, head on down to the comments. Let me know what you think about this story. What do you think about Parks' idea? What do you think about 100,000 ATF agents? Where do you think this could go wrong totally? Where does this go off the rails? I'd love to know. Love to know. All right, last story for the evening. Honolulu blinks in gun permit dispute, but it's still not good enough. No. They got busted. They got smacked. Tom breaks it down for us. Hawaii is a beautiful state. I agree. I was there last year in April before the fire in Maui. Beautiful state. Maui was beautiful. That is, unless you value the right to keep and bear arms, then it's not really all that great. Nice beaches and great weather don't negate people's rights, and yet there have been a number of officials in Hawaii who think otherwise. Among them was the state Supreme Court. In Honolulu, they were slow-walking carry permits to such an intense degree that they might as well not even have a permitting process at all. This led to the inevitable lawsuit because while they might be shell issue now, whether they want to be or not, it's hard to be shell issue if you never issue anything. And I fully expected Honolulu to dig in. It seems they didn't. Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering about this, but let's keep going here. Honolulu has agreed to grant or deny applications to carry guns in public within 4 months of submission in response to a lawsuit by residents who complained of delays up to a year, according to a stipulation signed by a federal judge Friday. The excessive delays that my clients experienced in obtaining their concealed carry licenses is indicative of a lack of commitment on the part of the government in allowing citizens to exercise their Second Amendment rights, said Alan Beck, one of the lawyers for the 3 residents of the Hawaii Firearms Coalition, which was also a plaintiff in the case. Representatives for Honolulu and city police did not immediately comment on the agreement Friday. In addition to granting or denying applications, within 120 days of submission, the city agreed to make reasonable efforts to procure and implement an online application system by March 8th, 2026. So they're just putting more stuff off. And you're still having to wait an ungodly amount of time here. I mean, 4 months. 4 months. That's still kind of stupid. That really is. This is a very positive move forward, particularly as this now is essentially a court order they agree to. May issue here is that 4 months is still ridiculous. Tom's issue is. I agree with Tom. Look, Hawaii is an anti-gun state. We all know this. The state's anti-gun status is a reflection of the attitudes of the population of its largest cities in Hawaii. That means Honolulu. That's the Aloha Spirit. While I know they got a lot of permits initially, there's really no reason going forward they can't issue or deny an application in more like 60 to 90 days. Georgia, for example, has nearly 8 times the population of Hawaii and required permits to be approved or denied within 60 days. And yes, the deadline existed before the state went to constitutional carry, meaning everyone who wanted to carry in Georgia had to get a permit. They still got them within 60 days, or else there was potential for a lawsuit against the county that failed to issue in time. Hawaii can do that as well. Granted, for folks there on the ground, there is still a huge step forward. They've lived in a state that refused to issue permits and whose own Supreme Court has claimed that the right to keep and bear arms doesn't actually exist on the islands. Being able to carry a firearm for self-defense is the big win, and I don't want to take anything away from that. I'm just saying that 4 months is ridiculous when there's zero reason they shouldn't be able to do that in half the time. And I agree. I totally agree. Even here in New York, when I got mine, I got mine here in Rensselaer County, which is where the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Bruin case, v. Bruin, that case originated right here in this county, the one I live in right now. So I gotta wonder. I got my license, which I still don't understand why I need a license for a constitutional right. I don't need it for my Fourth Amendment. Don't need it for my First Amendment. I would love to get an actual explanation of this. Seriously. Why is it required that I have a permit for a constitutional right, but not for my other constitutional rights? Is that what you're saying, that the Second Amendment is a second-class right, basically? I get wanting to keep people safe. I get that. Not having criminals, that's the whole reason the NICS system was created back in the 80s after Hinckley shot Reagan. So give me a break here, folks. When I say folks, I mean the government. But outside of the frickin' roosters that are all over the place in Hawaii, the wild roosters and wild chickens, aside from them coming after you, crime in the bigger cities is getting bad. It's getting bad. California Open Carry posting, State versus Wilson, Hawaii Supreme Court. The spirit of aloha clashes with a federally mandated lifestyle that lets citizens walk around with deadly weapons during day-to-day activities. Well, you would too if you were being chased by one of those fucking roosters. Don't tell me. All right? I don't know. COC, have you been to Hawaii? Have you been over there? I don't know where in Cali you live, but where have you ever made it over there? Have you seen the roosters? Has anybody else in watching tonight been over to Hawaii and seen those chickens? I'd love to know. If you have, let me know in the comments below the video. If you're in the chat, let me know in the chat. If you're watching on one of the streaming apps that doesn't let you do chat, like on your smart TV or Roku or anything like that, let me know on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, or maybe just comment next time you're on Rumble or the YouTube website. Just let me know in the comments for the video. I'd love to hear if you've been to Hawaii, what you thought, what'd you do, that kind of thing. But still, getting back to this. A right delayed is a right denied. We've said this. It's been that kind of thing's been held up in court. But then you've got to figure out what the delineation is. 4 months is okay. Why not 6 months? Maybe it should be 1 month or 2 months. COC says, I live near the beach. I've never seen it necessary to fly thousands of miles to go to the beach or see a rooster. Okay. Yeah, I hear they're gamey too. So you could catch them and eat them. They're not like a protected animal or anything over there, from what I understand. You could catch them and eat them, but it's like they're really tough and gamey. That's what they say. So I don't know, but I get you there. I'm just a mountain man. I was born and raised in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. So my closest beach was Caroga Lake in Fulton County. That was it. The only thing I had to worry about was were the trout gonna like try to nip at my toes. That was it. That was it. But what do you think about the whole Hawaii thing? They did blink, and that gets me wondering, why did they blink so quickly? So you'll see, I suspect they taste like chicken. Okay. That's quite logical, Mr. Spock. Yes. But again, why do you think Hawaii caved so quickly? This is a good question, I think, that I would love to know a little bit more about. They were all about it. I mean, the state Supreme Court. I mean, COC posted it just a few moments ago. You know, this case right here. This is the one. The spirit of Aloha. So, why did they cave so quickly? That's a good question. Maybe we'll find out at some point. I would like to know. Is this like a fake out? Is this something that they're going to try again? I mean, look at New York City with like one of the first was it the first Antonyuk case? Was it the Antonyuk case for being able to transfer to? No, it wasn't. It wasn't Antonyuk. Antonyuk is out of Schenectady. There was a case in New York City where you couldn't transfer your gun to an out-of-state range or anything like that. Vasterbone talked about it on Friday's show. I'll have to see if I can find that clip and post it. But is this something they're going to try to moot? I don't know. But they've already lost this case. They've already agreed to everything. So I don't know what the play is. I don't know what they're doing. But I never trust the government. I never trust the government. When they succeed the first time, they normally have something bigger planned. Yeah, probably. I would say that's probably it. I would say that's probably it. All right. Reportedly, the Hawaii Supreme Court Aloha case is being appealed to SCOTUS. Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what happens there. Probably not going to be in all the other cases coming up on the 16th. Oh, yeah. Reminder. Many two-way cases, mostly AWB, the assault, quote-unquote, assault weapon bans cases, coming up for conference at SCOTUS on the 16th. Don't know if we'll find out that day which ones will get taken. Probably not, but hey, we know that the clock will start ticking then. All right. Thanks for being a part of the show. Don't forget to check out the merch store, OttomanEmpire.creator-spring.com. Help me support the channel. Bring you great 2A content. I would appreciate that. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment on the videos on Rumble and YouTube. And make sure you check out the show notes. Discord link down in there. You can join the 2A community. Be a part of the conversation. Would appreciate it. Would love to hear from you. With that, next show is going to be Wednesday night, 9:30 Eastern. I will catch you later. Keep your head on a swivel and act accordingly. See ya.